Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
Gloves Off. I'm Professor Buitrón, and I have with me Grandmaster Bram Frank, and we're touching base on knives, self-defense, and just a little bit of everything that goes along with the awareness of training with blades in the martial art. So, how are we doing today? We're doing good?
We're doing good. I was a little tired. Professor Paul got me at the airport, but I had to get up, as you know, 4 this morning to leave Florida. And by the way, it was like 80 in Florida, and it was only 27 in Dallas. So good thing I brought a jacket with me because it was cold.
You know, this weekend's going to be cold. This weekend's going to go down. But we're going to be inside. We're going to be working out, and we're going to be having some good fun teaching some folks modern Ernest and your old system and trying to get them going, especially with the blades and all that good stuff.
Well, the good thing about coming here, because I know you love blades, you have blades in your work, and I love that you've taken to them, is that my tools, obviously, go from non-lethal to, sort of like a belly saw, solo belly saw. I can do Waka Waka Pac-Man, I can do snap cutting. And then, of course, once it kinetically opens, I'm engaged, I can still, within the flow, shut it right back down, because I have the only knives that will escalate and de-escalate. And of course, with indexing, I go right to reverse. And what I was showing people and kind of Professor Paul was that friction opening, then I can just open it on you. And that if I make contact, I'm there and trap and go. And that, because everyone thinks using a knife is, I gotta cut them, I gotta poke them. I said, a knife's gotta have other options. And that's what I just did with Chad Bailey at his camp. Was I actually, my knife class, we didn't cut. We did all the impact hitting and worrying about legalities. As you and I just sort of were talking about, sometimes when you pull it out, if you do something, people say, it's a lethal force tool. I said, well, no, it's not. Gary Johnson, Shooter's Toolbox said, as long as you have a hand on one of Bram's tools, it's like a Leatherman pliers. At best, it's a ball peen hammer. If you go to pop it open, it might be a pliers. And then you can grab with it and do whatever, like a pliers does. You can hammer with it. And once it's open, it only opens when you want it to. Well, now it's a blade, but like a Leatherman, you can shut it back down again. So I worked over, what do you do upon a confrontation? Because people don't want to do it. I said, well, and most people may, and just, Ernest Wave. It's now. I'm a Cancerian, I'm a when. So I tell people, look, if your first thing to do is you want to be open and cut, nothing better than a wave, but I'm sort of stuck. I'm in go mode. What if the person I'm with is a family member, a friend, and they're just drunk or out of control, or someone's having a breakdown, someone you can tell they're not a bad person, they're just out of control. Why would you pull out a blade and gut them?
No, you're absolutely correct, and a lot of situations occur with that drunk uncle or that brother-in-law that came in here and had a little bit too much liquid courage. Something happens and all of a sudden you're in the go and it's already time to take care of business. And you have to have something. You can't go full lethal. And that's why you have to have martial arts that have that.
Yes.
That have to be able to escalate and de-escalate.
Yes.
Because you have martial arts that just full escalate and full go, and all of a sudden something's done. It's already happened.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to do that because, you have, in today's society, and I always tell people this, there's more cameras around now than ever.
Yeah.
You go to a restaurant, more than everybody has a camera there. Why? Because they have their phone.
Yeah.
Most phones now have a camera anyway.
Yeah.
90% of them do.
Yeah, and they're video cameras, no less.
So when you get that and you start pushing that forward with camera in the self-defense situation, now the witnesses became a lot more.
Yeah.
Okay? So you have to take care of yourself in any situation.
Yeah.
You have to, do the lawyer's martial art, even though I understand people say, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Fine and dandy. But you're not going to beat the ride.
Yeah, and you have to understand that don't do the, don't go ahead and do it if you can't pay for it. And I look at people and go, you may get away with the criminal action, because you might be correct. You might be able to defend yourself. But there's just, in today's world, there's civil action. What damage did you do? And a lot of tools, as you know, are not tools. Weapons are tools that are designed to harm people. I make tools to accomplish more work. And people go, what do you mean? I said, well, if your tool, and that's why, of course, with the Bram, we talk about that, I can pop it open with the chimp teeth. I can put something there and cut to a certain depth. I can play Pac-Man and do scissors cutting, that I can use the Bram, as you know, to be on it. If I'm doing work from skinning to carving to doing whatever, I can control it. That I can lock it onto a surface, cut into it different ways, and that I can hammer with it, I can strip with it, I can actually undo nuts and bolts with it. People, what do I said? Because I make a tool. And that's when people also talk about, as you're saying, that's why I think I love the fact that you do Savate work, because that's a gentleman's art. And there was escalation and de-escalation. Some of the arts, and you've heard of almost modern day, where they go, finish them. I go, if you finish someone, you're finished. Because you're going to end up, best case scenario, in jail with the very people. And that's why, even my system of modular, no offense, I love Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So, I teach, the joke is Black Knight Tactical. I turn everybody into the Black Knight, a stump. And people, I had some trolls online going, well, a knife's only for killing, and you're really stupid. I said, you know what? Every time I pull out that knife, I killed someone. I get to do it 1 or 2 times, and I spend the rest of my life in jail. But if I cut your fingers, if I just make your hands not work, because human beings don't work well without our hands. If you're trying to kill me, if you're trying to harm people around me, and all I do is cut your hands. In our society, we're so used to seeing people missing fingers from their job, we don't think twice. People's lives aren't ruined. So if I can just shut you down, I won. God didn't give me a 0-0 license. That's 007 to some of you, because I knew James Bond, that we all know. I don't have a 0-0 license. No one gave me, even in a war zone. You and I talked to even in a war zone, there's rules of war. I can't just go killing everybody. And contrary to all the modern stuff, police are not allowed to just go kill people. Bad police get called for it, and good police, they try their best not to kill people. And all of us who are martial artists, we're supposed, as you said, teach the proper judicious use of force. We're not supposed to overdo it. And legally, as civilians, we may only feed back what was fed to us. And if the guy stops, as absurd as it is, we're supposed to stop. Well, you got to finish him. And the guys who preach it, and you've seen them, attack first, draw that tool out, kill him. Well, how do you explain it to the jury? Well, I sensed he was going to do something bad. You sensed he was going to do it bad? Well, the jury sees all that, as you said, especially today, the videos from all different angles, and goes, don't see it, don't get it. Oh, well, see his flinch right there? Oh, so the guy flinched, so you killed him. Oh, that's great. Oh, he fell down on the ground and you pounded his head through the ground. Why? Well, that's what you do, you finish him. We're supposed to be civilized. And that's why, for me, I have tools that I try to teach a civilized response, and I know you do in your martial arts. You're one of the few civilized gentlemen I've met. And you teach responsible use of force, and I think that's part of behooves in a martial artist, to understand legalities and teach proper response of the law and of society.
They've described, and I'm going to go into Savate because you use that. They've described Savate in many other in ways, and I'm going to kind of translate it. It says, Savate, or Dancer Savate, has back alley brutality, but yet it's aristocratically gentle. So you have to have that.
Yes.
You have to understand the good and the bad, especially if you're going through this road. And yes, the more you progress in the martial arts, the higher you go up in all different martial arts, the deadlier the techniques become. Okay?
Yeah.
And people say, well, how come you wait? Because you have to respect those people that are going up, and they have to show you if they're ready to learn that. What do you mean by ready? Are they just going to go out there and start beating up people? Or are they going to go out there and do it for the good or do it for the bad?
Right.
So you kind of have to, right. So you have to, vet them.
Yeah.
And a lot of vetting doesn't happen now. Why? Because we have a commercial setting. You have to accept people have to pay rent. So little by little, you start vetting that person into what it is. But in today's world, we live in a microwavable world.
Yeah.
Okay? And people want tactical this, tactical that, which is fine. Fine. There's people for that. If you get somebody that's never been in a martial art before and looks for a martial art and he gets into that instructor that's kill or be killed attitude, you have somebody that's what he believes in.
Yeah.
And if something happened, God forbid, they're going to be in trouble.
And they have no way to do except what they're trained. I had someone, and I mean, no disrespect for people who are stick people, because I finally some of the old Arnese people going, oh my God, Bram, you're right. Read me some of the old guys, the guys who did blade, didn't want to teach it, and picked a few of you to learn it, because it's not the same as a stick. Even like Ron Saturno, Ron's finally, after going to the Philippines meeting, old guys doing Spanish and HEMA style stuff, historical European martial art in the Philippines, going, oh my God, it really is a blade art and it's not the same. And I went, no, it's not. But you get people who, they want to just go ahead and use it. And I went, you can't just chop people up. It's not going to happen, and that. So as you train, so when I was back to the stick guy, I had a couple people said, I can do that with you. And they are some of the fastest people I've ever met, Brother Paul. They upon contact, they grab the stick, grabs your hand, done whatever. And I was with Roland Dantes and one of these other, and he goes, Bram, just play with him. So we had training bolos. And every time he went to strike and I went to check him with the foot, he grabbed my blade and would rip it like it was stick, rip it on hand. And I just stopped and said, I won. He goes, no, he didn't, I got it. I said, no. You can do that once. Now you don't have fingers, you have fingies. I won, you grabbed my blade. He goes, I wouldn't do that in real. And I went, unfortunately you would. You've trained, you can't even do it here in training, not do it. You've trained yourself so much that you're so fast upon impact, you grab the tool. And I guarantee you, under duress, as you know, we don't get smarter. We get stupid. Our brain shuts down to gross motor function. We lose fine motor skill, and we do what we've been trained to do. And if that's what you do, and I had a couple people in the Philippines who, they started playing with blades, they're very fast, and they said, we're going to train. I said, don't use, they took my blades. And they were training live blades, showing what they could do. It did not end well. Their hands got on and said, oh, sir, we never realized how sharp they were, and guess what? We kept putting our hand out there. I said, I know. I play, meaning I really, and I still get cut. And I try my best. I've had to disassociate from all the years of what I did, because I was now 30 years of playing with blades. But it's still at times stick stuff comes up, and martial empty hand comes up. And I think I've told you, I try to teach empty hand is just like my knife is still in my hand. Why? Because and simplicity. Really serious stuff has to be simple, which is why my tools are gross motor skills. I come up, I can hammer with them. And I tell people, anybody can hammer. What happens? Well, if I touch you, okay, it opens. I don't need skill to do it. It doesn't take skill to cut. It does take skill to try not to get cut and to not cut yourself. But if you don't practice that training, then I have to digress. That's what trainer drones. I don't use them just to teach. People say knife fighting or something. Knife etiquette, proper knife handling, so that when I have this blade in my hand, be it for any kind of tactical job I've picked, that I don't cut myself. Because people have lost it. As you said, in today's world, people get an idea and they're just going to be the tough guy. And I mean nothing about, and people say, well, MMA is a sport to me. It's a combative sport, and they're very great athletes. They're just like boxing, savant, Thai boxing. They're great pugilists. They train hard. Their heart is great. They have they're warriors in their right and fame. But that is a combative sport, right? But what I was saying is, not only that, I don't like it when people try to blame the bad attitude of martial arts on MMA. It has nothing to do with them. It's a combative sport, and you need to have that. I believe in myself, and I'm better. Or sport doesn't work. I mean, there's the thrill of doing it, and I don't believe you get a trophy for participation. I compete as an athlete. I like the agony of defeat, and I love the thrill of winning. And then there's traditional arts, and the art form is so beautiful. And then there's combative arts, and they don't always move into the other's field. Are they similar? Yes. Do they all have their place? Yes. Can any one of them actually be used for self-defense if your life depended upon it? Of course. But each one lives in its own world, has its own little rules. But some of the people today, and I don't want to blame it on video games, but I watch the level of violence that people are exposed to. And it's not violence. It's almost like cartoon violence. It's not real to people. So it means nothing. You know, the cartoons have taken on a reality, because we all grew up with Looney Tunes. None of us would ever think what we did to Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner or the Bugs Bunny. We would never do that to another person. It was a cartoon. We've blurred that, and some of the respect for other human beings has been lost. We were supposed to learn this art to make ourselves, and I realize it's not the war part, but after the modern era, to make ourselves better people, that we don't, as you said, just go beat people up. And I'm aghast at, of course, that people use it to impose themselves on their students. The ones who are perverted with their students. I don't believe in any of that, or use it to, be like the cult leaders. And I don't like it who build it up to themselves. Look how tough I am at what I do.
I agree with you 100%, and I see it all, and people say, martial arts is supposed to be all good. The bad guys don't train in martial arts. I know more bad guys that work in the underworld that train martial arts, that are out there looking to train for this, because some of them are collectors, enforcers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
These guys train.
Yeah. And they're using it for their job.
And they're using it. They're training for that. And there's certain arts that you see the good guys and the bad guys mixing in one, all respectful in one entity. You see it in Salat. You see it in boxing. You see it every single.
Artists is filled with bad guys.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But they're the nicest guys. And they'll help you out whichever way it is, because it's kind of like a different fraternity than what it is there. So when people say bad guys don't train,
bad guys train.
Bad guys train,
yeah.
And they train very good. So I just don't know which bad guy I'm facing.
Yes.
So you always have to be that one step higher.
Yes.
And I always tell myself this, and I always tell this: if I ever confront somebody in the street, that person knows a hell of a lot more than what I know.
Yes.
So I always have to be training myself to be better than them. So that I've always kept that along the line. And something that you said about basics, I remember Sifu Keith C. used to say, Adriano Emperado used to tell us, a man that's good in his basics is a hard man to beat.
Yes.
And people nowadays have forgotten to train the basics.
Yes. They
want to learn all this advanced stuff without having the basics. And you see him out there, and you see him with a blade going all over the place, and then all of a sudden, or they see him with punches and whatnot. Well, have you ever felt the punch? Have you ever know how to post a jab? Do you know how it works? Well, I train every day for this. You can train. If you don't have basics, it's going to get you once it's there.
Of course, because the foundation isn't there. My grandfather and my dad were real big on, and I didn't want to do as a kid, learn the basics of tool use. In the shop, you're using a regular tool. And you take shortcuts, those power tools and even the hand tools, you can get hurt. And when you spend time learning the basics, well then doing jobs later. And when I've done jobs around the house for friends, family, from my wives, been married a few times, they always go, how come you can do that so well? You make it look easy. I said, well, I don't do anything fancy. I was taught some very basics of what tools do. And I go find, I have lots of tools. Why? Because you have to have the right tool for the right job. And I make tools. And as you said, about getting older, what's going on? Part of what I also learned is people said, you wouldn't use a tool against someone who's no tool. I said, yes, I would. I don't know how, as you said, I don't know who this person I'm facing is. And so I have tools that allow me to be non-lethal in case you're stronger, faster, whatever, and I'm getting older, and I know like you, I may not wear the mileage so much on the outside, though I think it shows when I walk or whatever, you can see the mileage. But there's a lot of mileage inside. So you know what? Anyone says old guys can beat up young guys. Well, I guess in the right context you can, but overall that's why we have in sports weight classes. Guess what? Younger, stronger, faster matters. So I bring equalizer. I bring a tool with me, and yes. And I also, the older I get, the more I respect life. That's why we send young guys to war, because the value of life isn't there. I value life. I value that I think people can change, and I want to give them a chance. I want to have to enjoy what God's given us. Life is very precious. And I want my tools and my training to respect that. And I try to teach it to those I teach. Because there are people, and I'm offended by it. I've been doing, some of you may have seen my, and I know you know, my T13 cyborg personality, because I can say things as the cyborg that I can't say as Bram. But I watch some of the stuff, and I'll let the groups in, where they're stripping blades out, you know, because they're trainers, out of each other's hands, grabbing by the blade. And when you realize the more you perpetuate that, and then they feed it back at each other, like, you've obviously never had a live blade in your hand, and you've never tried to cut something. Graciela, you know Gracie. Graciela Garcias is my sister. And she came to me and I said, what's going on? She goes, I want to come play with you. I said, what? And this is in the old days, because she had just started training with Moss and was shooting. And people didn't want to hear about shooting as a martial art. But she looked and said, Bram, you guys cut things. I said, well, yeah. She goes, no, you guys cut things, because we cut rope, we cut cans, we cut bottles, we cut funk oil, we cut meat, we cut, you know, solid meat, we cut meat, you know, chicken with bones, we cut things. We practice cutting, because it's like people who dry fire and think they know what's going to happen, and people, well, you know, just shooting at a target. I said, shooting at a target, at least you get recoil and feel. Not, I own it, therefore I'm a, you know, I have a driver's license, so I can race Grand Prix. No, you can't. That car, you'll die as soon as you go to accelerate. You have no idea. Same thing with NASCAR. I was just picking, you know, just having a driver's license does not make you a racer. And if you got the car actually moving without being trained how those cars react, you're in for a surprise. The same thing with any tool, if you don't actually do it. So, cutting things matters.
Absolutely.
And I tell people, you know what? Go learn about cooking and the fine art of cooking, enjoy food, because you'll learn about using knives properly, what an edge does.
You're absolutely correct, you know, and I respect the blades and I respect knives, not only because of the martial arts. I'm an executive chef, you know, and one of the things that I had to do an apprenticeship in butchery also.
Yeah.
We had butchery class.
Of course.
And I saw a lot of things that were going on there, and I did a paper in one of the factories in Fort Worth, you know, and the slaughterhouse, and it was fascinated me the way when everything works. But I learned a lot more things with the blade and how the blades work. So you have to understand how a knife works in order for you to even start defending yourself against it.
Yes.
And I tell people this: if you do not know how to throw a punch or a kick correctly, there's no way you're going to defend yourself against a punch or a kick that's coming at you. And you have to learn. The same thing I say with people. Only because you're a black belt does not mean you can teach blade if your system was not built for a blade. You'll lose it. You're going to get people hurt. And until people understand the level that they're at, more things in good can go in there. It's when you're trying to say, this is what we do, and you were never taught, then that's when the danger happens.
Yeah, because they're making things up. Assuming, I used to always hate that, and go, assume is, you know, you make an ass of you and me. And I go, what a stupid saying, but it's true. And I watch people who've never used a tool, they have no idea what to do, and I'd watch them, you know, when they go into a kitchen. One of my stepbrothers, I had to go up to him and go, what are you doing? And he's eating. He was butchering this piece of meat. And I don't mean that in a good sense of like a butcher. I mean, he was, and I went, you have no idea how to use that knife. You don't even know what knife to use. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, well, you make it look effortless. I said, I picked the right tool for the right job, which is why kitchen knives have all different for design for purposes, not a general, because a chef knife is a good all-around purpose knife. But We have all those other knives. No, because they work for deboning, for slicing, for hacking, for chopping, whatever, pick it. And if you don't do it properly, even a simple job is. And I watch people going out going, you don't know where to cut. You don't know how to cut. You know, and I go, look, you people, this is not a stick. And that's why swords, and I have to digress to swords for a minute. In the old days, as soon as they started making mass-produced blades to give out so that anybody could be in the army and carry swords, the art of being a knight, and I don't care what country it's from, what culture, I'll just call it a knight, the art of being a knight got lost. And the knights looked at disdain at those people who, well, it works in combat. No, you mean you survived. Total disregard for your tool, total disregard for everything, and just because you made that technique work under duress doesn't mean you, and they would start teaching it, oh, look what I did. Knights went through a whole thing to understand the soul of the tool, all the prep of that tool and other tools of their trade, and how to make sure that tool did not fail them under duress. And Dieter just happened to post a picture, Dieter Noodle of Germany, and I love that he posted it, because he did what Remy and Roland did. You know, they took inexpensive machetes, which in the old days would have cost the village a couple of years worth of rice and God knows to make a tool. Disposable tools again have ruined etiquette. And of course, in the dark, as they're banging and like Madison Square Garden, sparks are flying. And back then I said, what do you do with them? Remy goes, oh, we throw them away. I said, can you hear what you're telling me? You come from a place in the Philippines where steel was very rare, and you're telling me you destroyed the blades because it looked good, and now you're going to throw them away. So Dieter found ones that they use all the time. These things look like they're notched like chainsaws. And I'm like, you kept using them? And I said, I'm glad you posted. I said, here's what I'm trying to tell you. You've ruined the edge. Knights in armor of any culture learn every time they, because there's always incidental contact combat, you can't help it. They're back there taking those nicks out to make sure there's no weak points and the blade is fine. Because the whole point of soft backs and forging, that real forged things flex, is that I can use the flat to absorb impact, I can pass with the back, and I cut with the edge. So I don't break my blades, I don't destroy the edges. People went, sir, look at those blades are ruined. And Dieter just posted a couple days ago, I've been sharing going, look, they're ruined. Now, the good thing about steel, if people to the attorney melt it back down, and of course that's the end of that piece. But I've been in cutting competition doing so with beautifully forged blades, and there was a micro fracture. And Amy was using my blade. She's cutting a can. You know, filled with water, it's on a 2x4, she was gonna cut it. And as she went to cut it, the thing goes ka-chink. And ever heard, you're talking about distinctive sounds? The sound of a piece of blade coming out is another distinctive sound. You heard ka-chink. She started and looked, and there's a half moon piece out of the blade. And Ed was right there and goes, oh my God. She goes, Ed, I didn't mean to ruin your blade. He goes, no, obviously there was a micro fracture. In the forging, something I can't see with the naked eye, that blade would have failed, you know, in combat.
And you're right about that. Edges failing and blades failing. That's why there were combative knives that were built for war. What that purpose was for, to take out a sentry, to take out everything else, and they were built for a specific purpose.
Yeah.
And you know, we're not in the business of building assassins.
Yeah.
You know, people think that you come into the martial arts, you're going to become an assassin. Well, good luck. But what I'm talking about is there's a reason for when the martial art was built for.
Yeah.
And the way you're studying and the way you train for it is the way you're going to present it if something happens to you in the street, God forbid.
Absolutely.
And like I said, train back to basics. So here's a question that many always ask in the blades. Can a blade be interchangeable in hands and in grip action with your blade?
Absolutely. Because everyone we all talk about indexing and changing up. And when I invented the spoon clip, and all of us twirl knives and do whatever and spin, and we called it indexing, but there was no point. And you have to bear with my little story. We're at the dinner table, and they told me to invent what did I want the clip to look like. And I really wanted to thought about it. So I'm twirling the knives on the table and spinning, just the regular dinner knives. And my wife looks at Mary and goes to the waitress, take them off the table. So I'm nervous, I'm trying to think. So I'm twirling the forks. She calls the waitress and goes, take the forks off the table. So I start spinning the spoon, and when I got into the spoon, Brother Paul, it wouldn't let me spin like I thought. I got and I picked up a different spoon, and the teaspoon and the soup spoon gave me a different response. And Mary started looking, I called the waitress, she goes, well, I know, take the spoons away. I said, no, how many different spoons do you have in the kitchen? She goes, what? I said, could you bring me a couple different spoons? And each one, she goes, you have an idea? I said, yeah, because as I slid down the handle to the spoon part, it took me to wherever it was its steepest point. Each one pulled me to a different point, and I went, like I could have had a V8 moment, and that became the world's first flat clip with a function. And I said, oh, it'll pull me right to that spot. I used to just put a dimple, because they said what I do is too hard. It's called a post in a hole with all that ridging. Was the idea that without taking my hands off the tool, it pulls me right down, that it gives me a twirl point and a rotational point. So if I came in and I'm hammering on you and I got that open, I could go right to reverse grip. Or if it's closed, I could go to reverse grip and then change it up and use the indexing as a point to come back. Because we all want to do it, but that gave me rails, and by having what I call post in a hole, gave me an axle. I ended up with dual indexing, so I could actually be on a diagonal. If I didn't grab it right or I missed that point, I still ended up in a point that I'm able to change grips, because I believe in changing grips. And a lot of times, I can do it under duress, with the Bram. It forces it, levers it back into your hand, so I can change up my range. And so, yeah, I do believe in it. And something I got from swords is, I have that solid piece, and that's my pommel. Because pommels were to take the weight away from the length of the blade and give you rotation by your hand, which is why that base is there, because now, not only does it roll in my hand, that means the point that's going around, the centrifugal point, the rotational point, when I'm spinning from forward to reverse grip, the weight is where I am focused right on that point, the rotational point. It's not out of the blade. So it is easy to change grips. And as you know, it's a firearms grip, it's not coming out of your hand. It locks in place, because to me, ergonomics is important.
And that grab there, there's something that I want to show folks. I'm grabbing the blade to show this, to show the grip. You see, I'm pushing.
My hand's wide open.
And I cannot pull it out because of the way it's designed. Okay, I'm grabbing the blade for this purpose of this demonstration. So for those,
and that's wide open, and these are surgically repaired fingers. Now, if I lock it in like a firearm, it's not going anywhere. Part of it also, when I get the reverse grip, I only need 2 fingers, because Professor Paul, would you get this out of my hand?
see,
It's not going anywhere. I only have 2 fingers holding it in. So where you used to have to cap them, so you wouldn't slide a blade in reverse grip, I don't even worry, which means now I can use it for grabbing. So yeah, design of the tool is important. People go, when you design a knife Bram, the blade's important. Oh, yeah. Thousands of years of designing blades. I can play on blade shape. But what hasn't been really worked on was ergonomics of handle. That it's locked in your hand because under duress, be it sweat, blood, grease, you name it. If I can hold that in my hand, and what I've started having is people who actually have arthritis and hand injuries are starting to buy my tools. And I just had one, a famous knife maker, I don't want to embarrass him, he said, Bram, I don't know what to tell you. I said, what do you mean? He said, I got one of your Bowie blades, the folders. And my wife and I both have very bad arthritis. I can't make knives anymore. I can't hold my own knives. But your knife, we use it every day as our kitchen knife because it won't slide out of our hands. So I sent them a set of my fixed blades, because they match up. Because Bram, those are my everyday kitchen knives. He goes, why don't you tell people you design stuff that people with arthritis and all sorts of crippling diseases can use it? And you guys might know, seen Eric Harris, he's got MS, and he loves because he goes, Bram, these blades stay in my hand because he's in a wheelchair. He trains every day, and his hands are weak. And what people used to laugh at me about ergonomics. And even Eric can change grip. And he goes, Bram. And I went, that's what God meant to do. Design a better tool. not that the blade's any better, because I have my own ideas of blades. You know, even as we were saying, bro, you know, I'm the 1%er that's tipped down. But that was also because, as you know, it's a ball peen hammer.
That's right. And folks, I use one. And I use one at the ranch, and I use one for many reasons. You know, I field dress many. I have one that I field dress many animals, as you can see here. You know, I love hunting. But, you know, they're hunting for a purpose. I want you all to realize one thing. And this was a question somebody sent one time, and he says, well, why do you want the blade that's going to cost so much? Any blade can harm somebody. Exactly right. So you can go to a gas station and pick up one for $12 and go poke somebody in the parking lot. You know that? So you have to understand, but number one, you have to have the respect for everything else. And we're not talking just about going out there and stabbing people, but it's out there.
Yeah,
Okay?
and tools. I never understood, you know, when I bought inexpensive tools coming up as a mechanic, and the old guys never told me not to. They let me, because I learned from experience, cheap tools break. You know, the reason people pay for good tools is you don't want them to fail. You know, the inexpensive sockets, they'd strip out, and of course, you lose the corner. Of course, you get cheap, good, and expensive. And I started learning that you saved up for good tools. Well, I make custom production, and that's what my custom maker friends used to go, we wish you would make production. And I'm one of the ones who started that I make a custom knife at production prices. Because they're hand ground, hand assembled, you know, everything's custom done, but I still make them in a bigger number. I only make hundreds, you know, it's not like I make thousands. And a lot of the famous knife makers now, when you buy their name brand knives, they haven't made them. They've now assembled teams of their family and workers, and they're mentoring people to make that famous maker knife. And they're making hundreds and hundreds at a time of each one, something the maker never could have done before, and they still got a team of guys, yeah, they're like Randall. Someone's hand making blades, someone's hand making handles, someone else making, when they put it all together, you get a knife. And some of the guys who used to make 1 or 2 knives a year said, that's not fair, they're not custom makers. Yes, they are. They just figured out a way to make custom knives accessible to the public. So instead of it costing $500 to $900 each, I can do, you know, $130 each. And people get a custom production knife, as you know, that are hard use and actually work.
You know, folks, we're running out of time, so we're going to end it in a little bit. But if you want to order it and get a good blade, I put my name behind it because I use it, number one. And if you want to study with Grandmaster Frank, please do so. Where can they get a hold of you?
My website is cssd-sc.com. You can find me on Facebook on Modular Blade Concepts page, where I post the sideboard comes on every day, does a 10-minute video and explains all the cool stuff. And at bramfrankmodulartraining.com, you can take my new online training courses. And of course, I'm still available, COVID, bear with us, for seminars, because that's what I do. I want you to understand proper use of the blade, the legalities of using the blade, the liabilities, because I don't want you to think you're going to learn knife fighting. I'll teach you proper use of an edge tool, proper use of an edge tool in self-defense response, and to make sure if you had to save your life or someone else's, you don't go to jail afterwards.
Absolutely. Folks, until next time, you guys be safe out there. Peace.
Have a great one.
Today, in America, more than 5.5 million men, women, and children train in a martial art regularly. Buitrón Academy has been serving Laredo for over 30 years now. Our adult classes are geared for producing the best in you, teaching you street-ready techniques. With the arts of Savate and Kinpo, you'll learn the traditions of these sciences of combat, as passed down professor to student.
Hello, my name is Stephen Plain, and to whom this may concern. Professor Paul Buitrón is an outstanding human being and a close friend of mine, where his martial art prowess and skill is at equal to his humanity. His teaching capabilities are what one would expect of someone from his caliber. I've been in martial arts since I was 9. I'm 65 years old now. However, if I had a son or daughter who needed to learn self-defense, anti-bullying techniques, and/or gain a higher level of skill in fighting, and in which I could not instruct, then Professor Paul Buitrón would be my choice. His martial understanding of his savate is higher than anyone else I have met. His pedigree is impeccable. He comes highly recommended by myself. Guru Stephen Plank. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Richard Planis. I was the vice president of the IKKA for Ed Parker for many years, 10 years before he died. And I still travel the world teaching all over. And I met lots of people through the years. And one of them I want to congratulate is Paul Buitrón down in Laredo, Texas. He's opening a new school, and that's always good to hear. I've known Paul since he was about 18 years old. I couldn't even tell you how old he is now. We've known each other for a long time, and he's like a lot of people should be, takes art seriously. He incorporated many arts, in his school. He does, capoeira, silat, jiu-jitsu, eskrima, kenpo, lots of different things. Any art like myself that you see a value in, you can bring it in and incorporate it if you want to. Anyway, so he's opening a new school, and I'd like to recommend it to anybody who wants to train down in the Laredo area. Meet him, go see him, you'll have fun. Thank you. Bye.
Come train at the best kept secret of Laredo. Give us a call for your free evaluation at 956-401-4868 or check out our website at savate.biz. Follow us on YouTube and Facebook.